realize that there are potentially different segments of customers that get different value, and package the offer in a way that appeals to those and set your pricing in a way that makes sense with those things in mind.
Coffee's for closers only.
So we've established my proposal is sound in principle. Now we're just haggling over price.
Let's see how much we're going for on eBay.
Man, it's the same as Dunkin' Donuts. Costs 15 times the price.
Welcome to Impact Pricing, the podcast where we discuss pricing, value, and the functional relationship between them. I'm Mark Stiving. Today our guest is Gabe Smith. Here are 3 things you want to know about Gabe before we start. He was a key employee at Vendavo for 7 years, probably where he learned pricing and pricing systems. We'll find out. He's a founder of at least 2 companies that I could find, and he's currently the Chief Evangelist for Pricefx. And that's why we want to talk to him today. Welcome, Gabe.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mark. Great to be on.
So how did you get into pricing?
Actually, it was a little bit before Vendavo. It was at Cisco Systems. And I started off my career there in the team that did all of the CPQ logic, the sales bill of materials, all the configuration logic, and a lot of the logic that impacted the pricing as well. And worked closely with the NPI, product teams, the product management teams. And then I got involved also in the channel incentives. And that kind of also led me to understand that pricing was more broad than just, getting a price on an order or a configuration, that there's all these different things that influence the profitability of the deals that you're negotiating, and really that concept of the price waterfall. So, but then I started developing a lot more focus on, pricing and profitability at Vendavo in those years.
Yeah, it was interesting because as I looked through your LinkedIn profile, it looks like you've done a lot of different types of jobs over the years. And every one of them leads back to pricing and value. I find that fascinating. And
I guess it's my destiny.
It is. Well, even at Vendavo, you went from pricing consultant into a product management role.
That's right.
I think product management is phenomenal for pricing.
Yeah, it is, particularly when you're introducing new products, right? One of the things, one of the folks that I respect a lot is a guy named, his
really good friend of yours.
No, he's Madhavan Ramanujan is the name.
Oh yeah, Maddie.
Yeah, and the whole idea of monetizing innovation, I think, is a great one for people that are in product to read and think about in terms of how you actually bring products to market and how you incorporate the willingness to pay and the thinking around pricing into that product introduction process. Because a lot of times it's an afterthought, right? You bring something to market and then you're like, okay, now what are other people pricing it? What, trying to get it kind of an understanding of the market, but you're not really thinking about the value and how you actually design that into the product and help select what features and capabilities that you're bringing to market.
Yeah, I had a chance to work with him earlier in my career. I don't know, probably 15 years ago now. Really, really nice, smart guy. And you mentioned it, but I don't know that you said it was a book. So everybody go read his book, Monetizing Innovation. Fabulous book.
Yeah, Madhavan and Georg Tak wrote that together. And yeah, Madhavan's, I've spoken with him jointly at TechCrunch last year, and he actually spoke at our first Accelerate conference in the US at Pricefx back in, that was 2015, so about 5 years ago. Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's talk about Pricefx, because I've actually been in pricing quite a while. I've seen the name Pricefx, but I've never run into the company to know what you really do, how it's different from other pricing systems. So give me the sales pitch.
Yeah, so at Pricefx, like myself, a lot of us came from generation 1 pricing optimization providers. And what we saw was that there was something that was kind of broken. And what was broken there was that these systems, they really drove a lot of value for companies that had the time, money, resources, and wherewithal to implement them. But they really were only able to be adopted by the largest companies in the world that had very robust IT groups and these kind of things. And then after you implemented them, they weren't very flexible. So Pricefx was really, and a lot of us that are at Pricefx believe, that there's a better way of doing things. And that's really the idea that Pricefx was founded around is, let's do this 100% cloud-based. Let's really focus on speed. So, we call them our F words, right? Fast, flexible, and friendly. That's what the company was built around. So speed to value of primary concern, the flexibility of the solution and not relying on IT to be able to make changes to it. And then the friendliness of the team, being very customer centric, being very easy to do business with, not locking people into long-term contracts. These are the fundamentals on which the company was built. And as you can see, it's going pretty well. And we've gotten a lot of interest, both from customers as well as outside investors to get on the Pricefx train here.
Well, first off, tell me what Pricefx actually does then, right? I'm actually familiar with some of the other ones, but pretend like I'm not.
Okay.
So that anybody who's not familiar gets.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Pricefx is a price optimization and CPU platform, right? So it's a cloud-based platform. We have at this point 7 different functional modules. We divide those up into 3 main areas. So insight, so getting analysis, understanding where there's opportunity to price better, to decrease margin leakage, to segment and optimize pricing in customers and products. That feeds in and then managed, and that's really around setting up your price books, your price list, your catalogs, etc. Also managing promotional pricing and contractual pricing is really done in the managed side. And then the realization is really where the rubber hits the road for a lot of B2B companies, especially. So that's where our CPQ offer is. That's where our rebate management offer and our channel management offer is. And all of these are wrapped inside of a cloud-based platform that have really robust integration capabilities and the ability to migrate our own content and third-party content to any of our customers' instances. So we have, developed accelerators that really allow us to move a lot faster, even than we used to. That's really, we're always focusing on how we do that better. But at its heart, we're all about how do you get the right price on the price list, on the deal that you're negotiating, on the rebate, including, the off invoice side of things. And then how do you account for all of those costs to serve and cost of doing business so that you're negotiating better outcomes with your clients.
So you're actually capturing cost to serve data in there as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We believe strongly in being able to reflect, all of the things that influence, especially the ones that really move the needle with regards to, your net margin. So we absolutely will. We're doing some things. It depends on the industry in terms of how deep we're going there. But we have customers that are actually freight, providers, like brokers and actual carriers, where we're doing very sophisticated, freight cost calculations as an example. But some of the other types of costs to serve that we're typically helping customers capture and account for are things like, payment terms, cash discounts, returns, all kinds of those types of things that can really influence the profitability of a customer or a product or, the combination thereof.
Yeah. God, I want to go 7 different directions all at once. I got to figure out which one I want to go down first. Let's talk about the industry for a second. You brought that one up. As I've been involved in pricing systems, it feels to me like a pricing system is designed around an industry because that industry behaves in a specific way, and that's how we build the pricing system. And they don't work super well once you take it into a different industry. It's like you have to force fit it. Do you guys get around that somehow, or are you just going industry by industry by industry?
No, we actually had a clear idea that architecturally we did not want to design for any one industry. That when you've been in this, I've been in this pricing software space now, if you don't include the CPQ days at Cisco and just the time that I've actually worked for price optimization software companies, about 13 years now, right? In various roles from consulting, sales, product, etc. And one of the things that I have taken away from that is, yes, there's definitely industry specific capabilities that are required, but those are not usually unique to any one given industry. So for example, we developed a dynamic pricing capability within Pricefx primarily for e-commerce, customers. However, we use that capability with other types of customers as well, like in the chemicals industry, to respond to index changes, so that when you're repricing a formula-based, chemical, then you can use that same kind of capability to reflect really any outside changing market conditions, whether it's competition, cost, index data, or what have you. You can use that same kind of dynamic pricing capability to feed into a lot of different use cases, right? So that's a good example of where you can develop a capability, and you want to do it in a way that's flexible enough to be used across industries and is an actual market need, not just for a specific customer. And you design the architecture in a way that it can be leveraged across those industries. So that's really the type of thinking that Pricefx is trying to incorporate when we're developing new capabilities.
It sounds wonderful. I'm just not sure how you go about it, but I'll buy the argument that you guys can pull that off.
Well, to give you a sense, our first three big customers were, one was a retail and e-commerce player, one was a chemicals company, and one was an automotive aftermarket parts implementation. So they, very different from the get-go. We were able to handle them all under the same architecture. We did add capabilities, like the aftermarket parts company needed the ability to manage rebates, so we introduced Rebate Manager for that reason. The dynamic pricing thing came from the e-commerce side, but you can use that actually over in aftermarket parts. It's a pretty dynamic environment as well, and there's a lot of competitive data and cost changes that you have to reflect. And actually, we're seeing that dynamic pricing capability, especially in both COVID as well as the trade war times that we've been in. A lot of these cost changes and uncertainty around that is driving a lot of different price moves. So so that's we have kind of figured out how to do that. It's not easy, but that's if you want to build a broad platform that is applicable across many different industries. And we've got customers in high tech, we've got customers that are selling services, automotive, aftermarket, construction materials, packaging, chemicals, distribution, retail, and they're all using the same platform. So I think it's really about speed and flexibility instead of like trying to pre-bake things and make them simple. It's about having the ability to change them, and with the accelerators, we do have like a starting point, and they will be more or less applicable to certain industries. But then we have the architectural flexibility to be able to make changes to, account for those industry specific needs as well.
And since it's cloud-based, is everybody using the same platform?
That's right. Yeah. That's one of the big advantages that we have compared to other, like the Gen 1 providers that have either acquired or moved into the cloud. They still have all of these on-premise customers, and they have this ridiculous support matrix of different web servers and databases and all this stuff and different versions that the customers are on. And it's a lot to support. It's a lot of overhead that goes into just kind of keeping the ship afloat. Whereas if you just say, you know what, we don't have any of that, we can move really fast and innovate and continue to expand the platform. And that's really, I think, a huge advantage for us.
Yeah, and the other thing that happens with the Gen 1 customers is they sold the multi-million-dollar deals, and anybody who's buying million-dollar software says, oh, you have to customize this for me.
Right.
And so they have tons of custom versions of their product out in the marketplace.
That's right. That's right. And that's really a problem, right? Yeah. So what we've been able to kind of figure out is how do we allow for that level of flexibility within the configuration layer and not requiring customization. Because if you're letting people create custom Java classes, or you're doing custom UIs, or building, logic into your user interface, it's just a nightmare, and you've got to avoid it. So, and that is kind of, it's much easier said than done, right? Yeah.
So the other thing that happened with the Gen 1 is it was multiple millions of dollars to implement, to buy. One of the nice things about going cloud is you often can go down market with your product.
Yeah.
So what's the smallest size company that makes sense to buy FX?
The smallest company that we have using Pricefx at the moment is probably doing $30 or $40 million in gross merchandise value in an e-commerce setting. But that's the exception, not the rule. Most of our clients are doing more than $100 million in revenue, and more than 50% of our clients are doing more than $1 billion in revenue. Actually, I think it's close to 55 to 60% now of our clients are north of $1 billion in revenue. But we have proven our ability to scale, and go down market, and we are always looking to make our user journey, and our buyer journey more frictionless and easier to implement, and move more from enterprise to transactional and self-service. So I think you'll see part of the we just got $65 million in Series C funding, as you probably saw. Part of what we're going to be using that for is to really expand that vision and make more strides into reducing the effort that's required to implement and license the software, and just kind of really get down to a place where we can have bringing this to anyone that needs it, right? That's the end state vision, right? And then having the right kind of capabilities and flexibility in the platform to scale as large as needed as well.
Yeah, the thing that's obvious is that big companies get much more value because of the fact that they have such complexity in their world. They need that complexity simplified somehow. They need to be able to control many different things at once. And then you just do that change that says, hey, if I fix your pricing by 1%, that's what, 10% profitability to the bottom line or something like that. Mm-hmm. That 10% is a really big number for $1 billion company. It's not such a big number for a $30 million company.
That's right. Yeah. So you've got to have the ability to have a subscription that makes sense, but also have the implementation aspect, lightweight enough where they're not going to have a big IT team and a bunch of pricing people to work on, and project management people to manage this whole thing, right? So you've got to really streamline all of that, and not only license it effectively, that where the ROI makes sense, but also be able to implement it and maintain it. And that's a big part of the story as well.
Yeah, the advantage is there's a whole lot more of those small companies, but they don't on an individual basis get as much value from your product. So
yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Okay, so I got to ask, and you do not have to answer this question. I'm a huge fan of subscriptions and subscription pricing. So what's the pricing strategy for Pricefx? How do you guys do pricing?
Yeah, so what we decided was that our value metric, that the thing that aligns most readily to the value our customers get from our solution, is the amount of revenue that they're managing, and potentially the capabilities, right? So it's kind of, and at a certain size of company, that capabilities part really kind of isn't really as much of a focus, right? So we're more focused on kind of solutions rather than specific functionality or capabilities at that point. But those are basically the two vectors that we use to price our solution. So for a company that's a $500 million distributor, we might be looking at, okay, what are you trying to do? Or is this about setting up of the pricing? Is it about negotiating? Do you have rebates? And looking at like that kind of capability or functional footprint, and then saying, okay, you're at 500, and then here's your price based on the combination of those two things. At some point for a larger customer, that kind of modular nature of the solution doesn't really make sense, because there's a break even with regards to that whole thing. So we're really and we want to keep it simple. So we honestly try to keep it as simple as possible, and not involve too many different moving parts in the way that we license the software.
Nice. That's perfect. So when I teach subscription pricing, I always say there's 3 value levers. There's market segments, which you talked a little bit about, the really big people and the small people. Mm-hmm. There's the packaging. And so packaging is what features and options you're going to get. And so we talked a little bit about that. And then the last one is the pricing metric, which is how much revenue do you have under management, essentially. Yeah. So. Yeah.
And that's easy for us to know, because we're loading the transaction data in. So.
Right. Well, now do you get orders as well? Oh, you have to get orders if you're going to do analytics.
Right.
You have to
Yeah,
know when we won
we
deals.
generally are getting the invoice data and potentially quote data, and then obviously customers and products and all the master data that goes around that, and then the costs, of goods and cost to serve, in order to construct that waterfall view.
Yeah, absolutely fabulous. Gabe, we are running out of time. I'm having a great time with this conversation, but I have to end with the question I always end with.
Okay.
What's one piece of pricing advice you would give our customers, our listeners, if that you think would have a big impact on their business?
Wow, that's a loaded question. One piece of pricing advice.
One piece.
I would say to start with the customer. That's and to understand the value that they're getting from your solution, and that's going to vary depending on the segment, as you mentioned, right? And really suspend disbelief in terms of how things have been done. If you're looking at something that's incremental change, really think about that. What is the value, and what's the right value metric that I should be basing my pricing on, and realize that there are potentially different segments of customers that get different value, and package the offer in a way that appeals to those, and set your pricing in a way that makes sense with those things in mind.
Absolutely fabulous answer. It's always about value, right? It's always
right.
about the value a customer's getting. So Gabe, thanks so much for your time today. If anybody wants to contact you, how can they do that?
You can get me on Twitter, SW Evangelist for software for short, Evangelist. I'm on LinkedIn under Gabriel Smith, and you can just email me also, gabriel.smith@pricefx.com.
Excellent. Episode 80, all done. As always, I'm going to ask you, please, please, please leave us a review. It helps us a lot. And I want to start giving shout outs to people who do leave us a review. So Miller438 this week wrote, "What struck me is the statement that was made, spend more than 30 seconds on your pricing. I highly recommend anybody thinking about shifting prices to listen to this." Also, please join our community at championsofvalue.com. It's absolutely free. There you get access to all of the things that I publish, my memes, my blogs, my videos, my podcasts. We post them all there, so please join us. If you have any questions or comments about the podcast or about pricing in general, feel free to email me, mark@impactpricing.com. Now, go make an impact.